Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's August 14th, 2022, and I'm here with my partner, Steve. Steven, can you hear me?
A little bit sketchy right now, but we'll persevere.
Okie doke. So we got some things we want to talk about. It's kind of mostly going to be baseball because it's starting to come down the stretch in baseball, and a lot of teams kind of separating. Looks like the Mets are back on the road. With DeGrom and that's kind of stuff. But I first want to start off with the monologue. And Steve, this is something you and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when it first came on. This Derek Jeter documentary, The Captain on ESPN, must see TV for any baseball fan. I mean, I just am amazed at how clutch this guy was for so many years. And he's not a power hitter, but yet he hit 260 home runs, wins 5 championships, and probably should have had 7. But this is an outstanding documentary. It's um, indicative of his parents, who are just the nicest people, and they raised a very nice guy, and he turned out to be one of the best Major League Baseball players of our generation for sure. Lifetime 310 hitter. But the documentary, it was just filled with just great footage, great interviews. It went into the whole him and Alex Rodriguez thing and whatnot, and who's the bigger star, that kind of thing. And I think Jeter remained really humble throughout his entire career. And he did everything right. He kept a low profile when he was not playing, and he had a great relationship with the media. It's an amazing documentary, and I don't know if you've seen them. There's 7 parts to it, but this is must see TV for baseball people, no question.
Oh, I've seen the documentary, and I agree. It's must see TV. Derek Jeter. I remember the '96 season, the opener at Cleveland, and I
Yeah,
remember his first home run like it was yesterday. And
yeah,
you look at Derek Jeter back in '96. He looked like any other kid, 18, 19, 20 years old, but he just never seemed overwhelmed by the enormity of becoming the New York Yankees shortstop in '96. And I
yeah,
think the veterans, I thought was cool about the documentary was the veterans knowing, maybe 2, 3 months, 4 months into the '96 season that this kid is the real deal, and we can feel good about him at shortstop. And yeah, I mean, Hall of Fame career, many, many clutch hits. I love the Alex Rodriguez thing, just because it makes Alex Rodriguez look even, worse than
it does.
what Alex Rodriguez is. And the comparison between the two is nonsensical. Um, you know, uh, A Rod is a home run RBI machine fueled by steroids. Okay, let's make no mistake about it. Super talented baseball player didn't need steroids, and he's like a Barry Bonds type of thing where it's
Yep.
part of the story. And this is a two-time convicted guy, which leads you to believe where there's smoke, there's fire. He's been taking this stuff, in my opinion, probably since he was 20 years old, if not even earlier. But I
I
think this
wonder.
shows
Yeah.
Derek Jeter very well. There's people out there that don't like Derek Jeter, that don't think he is, this bona fide Hall of Famer. I beg to differ. I'm not biased that he's a New York Yankee. Um, his moral standards are spot on, and you covered that from his parents that
Yep.
instilled that in him. And what I found, pretty cool was Kalamazoo, Michigan, and they showed like the little league field that he played in, and all
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah.
you know what I found fascinating was Derek Jeter was like, man, we weren't pretty good, we weren't any good, like they didn't win anything, like they didn't. they didn't like qualify for the Little League World Series. They didn't qualify for like regional play,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
But that's where he formed like friendships for life, and you know, in the community at Kalamazoo and all that. And yeah, I found it to be well
Well, Steve,
worth.
you know, you just brought something up that you said some people don't think he's a bona fide Hall of Famer. Where are those people, and what were they watching? And when you compare to today's player, you know, he's a 310 lifetime hitter. You know, guys don't even hit 270 now. That's considered great. I mean, and he did this for 20 years. He only had the one season, his second to last season, he was injured for the whole season. Every other year, 600 at bats and consistently 200 hits. I don't know, you know, if it's just a bias because he was the Yankees. And listen, I agree with you 100%. We're Yankee fans, but I look at Derek Jeter, the baseball player, and I say this guy is a legitimate Hall of Famer. No questions, no hemming and hawing on anything. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know who these people are that don't think he's worthy of being a Hall of Famer, because he sure as hell is, you know. Anyway, so our monologue was sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York. And again, we wish our sponsor good luck tomorrow in the St. Joe's annual golf outing. And he's loaded for bear this year. He's hungry. So good luck to him on that. So Rob, do we lose Steve for a minute here?
Temporarily, so I popped in.
Okay. So listen, I wanted to kind of talk about baseball and the state of things here in New York, right? The Yankees seem to have kind of leveled off, a little cool, but Aaron Judge is as hot as there is a player in baseball. But when you look at it, and we've said this up and down from the beginning of the season, when I looked at that lineup, it didn't blow me away that this was going to be a team that was going to run away and get 116 wins. But they're hanging in there. I mean, they're so far ahead in the division, that's not going to be a problem. And then across the river in New York Mets land, they're consistently hot, and they're playing great baseball. And this is the whole Buck Showalter effect. It's really taken charge in New York. And when I look at with the prospects going down the road here, then as we wind down the season, you know, Max Scherzer is just pitching incredible baseball. And Jacob deGrom is now back, and he's pitching incredible baseball. So the Mets are in really, really good shape, and the Yanks are in a tailspin. And, you know, I don't think Judge can do this alone. I'm a little concerned that Holmes has lost his edge from the first half of the season as the closer. And I think it's going to be a challenge to beat Houston, I think, is really what it comes down to for me. And when you look at Houston, I mean, not only is their lineup outstanding and they can hit like crazy, now you got Justin Verlander, who's back on, you know, after Tommy John surgery or whatever it was. He's having another incredible year. They're going to be a tough team to beat. And, you know, again, that's not the only, you know, we keep singling out, you know, the Yankees and Houston and the Mets and the Dodgers. I mean, look at what the Dodgers are doing. I mean, they got an all-star lineup up and down, and they're all hitting at the same time. So they're going to be tough to beat even for the Mets. But I really like the Dodgers' chances, and I think the Yankees are a little bit in trouble. And I don't hang this on Cashman or anything, because they had a great start to the season, but they're cooling off a little bit, and this is going to be interesting to watch.
Well, I think the ace in the hole is going to be two relievers coming back, Zach Britton, and they're kind of counting on this Steven Ridings kid, who's kind of coming back from injury to maybe bolster his bullpen. That's our only weakness, right? I mean, aside from some holes in the lineup, but our end of the bullpen, you know, is really falling off the cliff. And if he can somehow shake that out. But then again, I was thinking about this last night. You know, he had two close games against Boston,
Yeah.
Right. But you know what? Score more runs and you're not in a one-run game anymore, you know?
You don't see it very often. I mean, the Mets won a 1-0 game yesterday. I mean, DeGrom pitched 5 innings and struck out 10 guys. I mean, this guy is the real deal, and it's going to be a tough pair to beat down the road. I mean, we keep going back to, you can have 2 great starters and sometimes 3. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. Like the Braves had Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox and so forth, but things are going to be interesting down the road. I just wonder whether or not the Braves are coming together or not coming together. Every time they get hot, then they got kind of cool off. So I don't know if they can catch the Mets. But there's still plenty of time, right? There's 60 games left, 50 games left, something like that. Right, Steve? You see this DeGrom pitch last night? It was amazing. I mean, this guy's a bona fide Hall of Famer, and he might not even win 200 games in his career. That's the funny thing about it. A couple other things in baseball. How about this Fernando Tatis thing, huh? I mean,
surprise.
I'm a little surprised. I thought this guy was mature enough to accept that contract that they gave him, and apparently he's not. I'm little. The Padres are pretty pissed off about it. I could tell you that much. I mean, we invested $340 million, and he's getting banned for 80 games. It's unbelievable. Couple other things in baseball. There was Pete Rose was welcomed back to Philadelphia for, I guess that was their 1980 World Series. I can't even look at this guy, and much less see him on a baseball field after, just notoriously lying about his gambling and literally the manager of a team betting on his team. And it's just unbelievable that even the Philadelphia Phillies, I don't care that he was a part of that team. He's banned from baseball for a reason. And Philadelphia, not the warmest fan base in the sports world, but they kind of just said, "Hey, look, it's Pete Rose. He was there. I disagree. I wish he wasn't part of baseball anymore. He's just such an arrogant guy, and takes no responsibility at all for what damage he potentially caused in Major League Baseball. Frustrating." Here was another interesting thing. I was driving and I was listening to some talk radio or whatever, and the topic came up about this kid Altuve, and I know Steve doesn't like the guy, and yeah, maybe he was cheating. I guess I still doubt the whole electronic thing, but and somebody said he is probably the best second baseman, and immediately my first reaction was, "Excuse me, what about Joe Morgan?" I mean, Joe Morgan was an unbelievable baseball player. He's a Hall of Famer, and they're dismissing and calling Altuve the most productive offensive second baseman. I mean, I can go up and down the list. There was Ryne Sandberg, who had for 8 to 10 years was an absolute stud. I mean, Altuve's good. I like him, but to compare him to Joe Morgan is an absolute joke. I couldn't believe I was hearing this, and it was just, sometimes I wonder, what do people see that I don't see, or what do I see that other people don't? It's just crazy. I mean, Rob, would you say that Jose Altuve was a better baseball player than Joe Morgan? It would be
Not yet.
Right, but not yet. He's in the league 10 plus years. I don't know how much time he has left, but that's an unbelievable comparison that I just thought was flat out silly, to be quite honest.
Well, same way with the steroids guys. You can't give him any credence, because maybe he got some fault. He got an advantage by the cheating of their scandal and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I just when I think of the most productive second baseman of my generation, that's who I think of, Joe Morgan. I don't think Jose Altuve. And to dismiss Ryan Sandberg is hard to believe either. But anyway, so there's a lot going on in baseball, but there was one interesting fact that now Shohei Ohtani, he is only the second baseball player to have double-digit home runs and double-digit wins, and obviously the other guy was Babe Ruth. It's pretty good, right? So I mean, this guy's lighting it up. I don't think he's having the kind of season that's going to take the MVP away from Judge, because Judge is just he's just tearing the ball off the cover, cover off the ball. So we'll see how that goes. But I thought that was an interesting.
Considering the haul that Soto just received from San Diego, I mean the Washington team, I think Ohtani has to be traded this offseason, because you'll get a haul, you get a real big haul for him right now, and if he goes to free agency, obviously, then the Angels lose out on a lot of players and prospects. So I think he gets traded this offseason.
It's really hard to understand, but I think you're right. I mean, they're not winning with him. But, when you talk about, they'll get a great haul for him like the Nationals got. I mean, the Nationals were a World Series team in 2018, and they just completely traded away their top 5, top 6 guys in the entire. I don't understand. This is going to set the California Angels back another 10 years, in spite of, I mean, he's putting people in the seats for sure. But you're right. I don't know. I don't think they can afford to pay him if they don't have the players around. And now Mike Trout's going to probably be out again for the remainder of the season, it looks like. I don't know.
Now we got Mobile Steve. Now we got Mobile Steve in the car.
Mobile Steve. There he is.
Mobile Steve now.
Can you hear us, Steven?
I can hear you, but it's very garbled. So the communication is not going well.
Oh, all right. Well, we were just talking about some just little tidbits around Major League Baseball. And we were bringing up your buddy Altuve. So to compare, I was telling Rob that I heard somebody that were comparing him to the best offensive second baseman possibly ever. And I said, what about Joe Morgan? Did anybody remember Joe Morgan? Anyway, so we covered some of that stuff. And we also brought up your Pete Rose guy, who was back on the field in Philadelphia, which was deplorable to even have him step on a baseball field ever again. That's my feeling on that.
Did you cover Peter Edward Rose making an appearance in Philadelphia last week? That was such a train wreck and disgusting.
Oh my God, that's exactly what my point was. Yeah. Well, so let's move on, Steve. We're getting close to the NFL season starting, right? And again, let's start off with the elephant in the room. This whole Deshaun Watson, who gave a fake apology yesterday to the women that he has impacted. So if that's not an admission of guilt, I don't know what is. But the 6-game suspension, we talked about it last week, was just absolutely deplorable. I don't know the game that Roger Goodell is playing, taking the stand that they want. They agreed to this arbitration thing. So I don't think the NFL's got any more leverage here to suspend him for the season, which is rightfully what should be done. But anyway, so he did start the game the other day, and he'll be down for at least 6 games unless something dramatic changes. But if Roger Goodell is the commissioner of baseball, why wasn't he the one to make the ultimate decision? And that I don't understand, the whole legality of it all. Frustrating.
Roger, this is a complete farce by the NFL. Like you said, this arbitration, the rules were already set. This is nothing but PR. 6 games. They knew the outcry based on this decision. So, he's demanding at least a year and wants to show, the NFL does not stand for this behavior. It's all dog and pony nonsense. And Roger Goodell has, the last 5 years for me, has dropped like a rock as far as I'm concerned, with integrity, likability for me. Roger Goodell, I don't respect anymore. I think Roger Goodell is not a good man.
I can't disagree with you at all. And it all started for me with the concussion stuff and the way that he kept denying it. And I know he was carrying out Tagliabue's,
Marching orders.
That's exactly right. But that started the downfall for me. And I couldn't disagree with you more. He's really lost a lot of credibility to me. And I just don't get the whole Deshaun Watson thing. I just don't understand why it had to go to an arbitration type of a scenario to decide this whole thing. But
right, this is real life stuff we're talking about here. This guy is basically a serial, sexual predator. Okay, there's no question about it. And real back to Roger Goodell, like the gambling, the complete hypocrisy of, again, 5 years ago, whatever it is, there'll not be, no gambling and the integrity of the game and so on and so forth. And here we are 5 years later. Why? Because the money's too great, and that's it. And like you said, the credibility with him is in the toilet bowl for me. And the popularity of the NFL for me is waning week by week, to be honest with you, because of things like that are going on. Like 6 games with Deshaun Watson, I think it's just an absolute outrage.
Yep, agreed. And there's a couple other things that it's really starting to get to me as well. With the NFL is starting to turn into the NBA, where these guys they have contracts, but they demand to be traded, right? This Roquan Smith in Chicago and Kareem Hunt, these guys, I want a new contract. Well, wait till your contract is up, and they give in to these guys, right? We saw San Francisco gave in to Deebo Samuel, and I just can't stand it. I don't understand what having a contract means, and why there's no value to it, and people can. And I listen. I would just as soon let these guys sit and say, we're not trading you, and we're not going to pay you until your contract is up. And when you look at what's going on, like the one guy that I've gained a lot of respect for is this Lamar Jackson. He's negotiating his own deal and so forth, and he's going to get the biggest contract in the NFL history. But he's doing it. He comes to work and so forth. He knows his contract is coming due. He's not demanding a trade, and he's going to be a free agent. This is the last year of his rookie deal. So he's doing it the right way. But guys like Kareem Hunt and saying, I want to be traded if you don't pay me, then you sit. This is the Kevin Durant mentality or whatever. It's becoming like the NBA, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson is going to be the highest paid player in the NFL very soon. Very soon. And, I mean, what do you want me to say? It goes to the point of the NFL. It's just deteriorating week by week, month by month. It's just $13-14 billion business. That's all it is. And the popularity for me, like I said, keeps waning because of stuff like this.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I
what
don't, like I
think.
said, I mean, this is what you and I do. We grew up watching football. It was must see TV week after week. And now I'm going, it's getting out of control about who's, the inmates running the asylum analogy. It's really going on in the NFL. Frustrating.
Yes, it is.
So a couple
again,
other things for the NFL, Steve, and I wanted to note this because he retired. He was a good player for the Patriots. James White retired after 9 seasons, and he came out of Wisconsin and just was just a hard worker, and just kept impressing Bill Belichick year after year. And that's a big loss for New England for sure. But he was always a classy kid, and he had a great Super Bowl, and he's got 3 rings overall. I wanted to note that because he was like a 3rd round player, and that's a guy that just came to work every week, and he did what he was asked to do. And I just wanted to recognize him and wish him well in his retirement. Young, probably 31 years old by now, right?
Yeah, but he's the type of player you want on your team. Big James White fan. His nickname was Sweet Feet, and well respected by the Patriots, players, the coaches, the fans.
Yep.
Very humble, gracious guy. He sent a tweet or whatever out to the New England fans, and he's a professional. And
Yep.
James White had a really good career.
Yep.
And I mean, he's a character guy, and we keep touting on this show.
We do.
We want character guys on any team that we're involved with. But
Yep.
James White, well-deserved career.
Yep. There was also an interesting thing I saw, and I'm getting so tired of this guy trying to separate himself from everybody else. But this Deion Sanders, did you see this little rant that he went on about the Hall of Fame? He said there should be certain people like myself that have different colored jackets. Like there's a Hall of Famer, and then there's the Hall of Famers, and he's putting himself in that category. I don't dismiss the fact that he was a good, impactful player, but to say he was, above and beyond, these guys, I still disagree with Tony Baselli getting in the Hall of Fame. Maybe that's what he was alluding to, but to say he was separate, he should have a separate wing for him and certain other guys is, God, this guy just loves to hear himself talk. And I don't know how people tolerate this. It's unbelievable. It really is.
It's very difficult for me to admit this, but Deion Sanders was the best at his position. And I'm talking pure speed. I'm talking all around. Listen, he avoided tackling like the plague, but coverage-wise and his impact on a game, I'm not the biggest Deion Sanders fan, but I'm always objective in my opinion. I think Deion Sanders was the best corner ever to play. I do.
Wow.
It's tough. Listen, Darrelle Revis is going into the Hall of Fame, and Darrelle Revis' coverage skills were phenomenal, right? So what's the difference between Darrelle Revis and Deion Sanders? Well, Deion Sanders could return kicks. Deion Sanders, that type of thing. He was electric. And, I'm not saying build a wing for Deion Sanders. I'm not agreeing with his, there should be a darker or, different color jackets based on, levels of Hall of Fame. But I do have to acknowledge that he is probably the best corner we've seen.
And that's a pretty fair comparison with Revis, and he did bring that other dimension to the game. He was a dynamic kick returner and punt returner, but to separate himself from the guys in the Hall of Fame, like I don't even know who he's referring to be quite honest. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. I don't really care what he has to say,
He's probably referring to, for our Raider fans, Ted and Anthony. Howie Long would probably be my guess.
Or Dan
Joke.
Hampton.
Hello, haha.
Or
They
Dan
burn up when I
Hampton.
bring
Yeah.
up.
Anyway,
They burn up on.
so, and again, here's a guy that goes kind of unnoticed because I don't know, we don't see the Ravens, but this guy, Justin Tucker, now the highest paid, kicker ever. And when you look at his statistics, this guy's a Hall of Famer. I mean, if Vinatieri's going in, right, Justin Tucker's got to go in. So listen, if they're throwing this kind of money around, then it's great to see somebody that actually deserves to be paid at the highest level at his position. And I think Justin Tucker's the best kicker in the game. I have no problem with it,
No, none whatsoever. Justin Tucker is money, and yeah, Hall of Fame, no question about it.
Yep.
Vinatieri, no question about it.
Yep. So, a couple of interesting things going on, right? There's still this Garoppolo out there. I don't know what caused the big riff in San Francisco, or if it's just to get Trey Lance the opportunity. But Zach Wilson went down with a knee injury. They're saying it's not that bad. He's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. You see Garoppolo going to the Jets as possible insurance? I mean,
no, not at all. You have Joe Flacco and you have Mike White. That's what they're there for. Absolutely not a chance.
Joe Flacco is not Joe Flacco of old, so he's not going to win you any games. He doesn't even look like he wants to be out.
I'm only reporting that Joe Flacco is on the Jets roster.
Okay. Well, I think there's a possibility. Like I said, I even thought there was a possibility that he could end up in the Giants because they don't seem to have the appetite for Daniel Jones. And I do, but I just don't know that the Giants do. I don't know if Daboll can just, walk in and turn this guy around. I hope he can. But there's a lot of tension in the New York Giants camp. There's been a couple of little brawls and so forth. And I wonder, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or does it mean Daboll doesn't have control of this team or whatever? Listen, I'm a big Brian Daboll fan. I was happy with the choice for him to be the head coach. I wonder. And again, you know what, Steve? You're right. I don't watch preseason per se, but I watched the first couple of series for the Giants against the Patriots, and it was the same thing we saw. And I think the guy has so much potential, but it was Saquon Barkley, 4 carries, 12 yards. I mean, I don't know what's going on there. I don't understand it. And they got a better offensive line, so I don't want to hear people talking about, if he doesn't produce, then I'm all on board with it. Just didn't work out for some reason or another because he's healthy and I think he's good, but I don't know if it's just him not being able to read and make the holes and be that productive player we thought was with the number 2 pick in the draft. I wonder if it's time to cut bait on that,
Hey guys, real quick, one of my friends up here this week, he's a football coach for FDU Madison, and he knows a lot of people in the industry, college and pro. And one of his good friends is the new O-line coach for the Giants, Johnson. I forgot what his first name is. And he seemed to give me the impression that the Giants coaching staff already thinks Daniel Jones is garbage. And from what they've seen so far, and they're already kind of looking ahead already to next year.
It's not surprising. I mean, real quick, Barkley, wow, 4 carries, 13 yards in the first preseason game. I'm not putting any stock in that. What I have been hearing, though, from a few Giant fans is that have gone to camp and seen Jones throw, is that he was missing balls just through air, right? Just dropping back and the guy doing a 15-yard out or whatever the case may be, and, not crisp and not like hitting him in stride like an NFL quarterback would. I think there's ramifications from this neck injury Um, back to Brian Daboll and Jimmy Garoppolo. There's not a chance Garoppolo's coming to the Giants. Tyrod Taylor is a professional NFL quarterback. He has history with Daboll. Daniel Jones is subject to get hurt. Daniel Jones may be subject to get benched, depending on his play. Tyrod Taylor is the answer, insurance-wise, for this year.
Yeah.
There is no question the New York Giants are getting a new quarterback, in my opinion, next year, especially with the draft-heavy quarterbacks in the upcoming draft.
And also, our guy Brad from Delfan Radio, one of our shows here on Blackjack TV, also had a pretty good scenario that he thinks that Tua is going to falter down there in Miami. That Garoppolo goes there because he knows the offense from the guy from the Niners, who's and I'll make them a playoff team once that finally happens. But he thinks Tua is garbage.
I think. Listen, I've mentioned this before. I don't think Tua is that caliber NFL quarterback to get the job done. I don't think he has the arm to throw it more than 45 yards for some reason. I don't know what that is, but you know what? That could make sense for the Dolphins, for Garoppolo. I could see that happen.
Yeah. All right, guys.
I mean, I'm not in the camp here that Tua is going to implode and he's not an NFL quarterback. He brings a lot of good intangibles to the table, as far as I'm concerned, and he can throw it more than 45 yards, Jim. Let's be clear there. This is a big year for him. This is year 3. He needs to step up. Because he's going to be like Jones. You know, the Dolphins are not going to, when his rookie contract's up, they're not going to give him $50 million, $45 million, whatever the case, whatever the market will bear, unless he, steps up and does something special this year. Will he do something special? I'm not anticipating that, but I'm not anticipating him being this bum that everybody is expecting him to be. This kid won the national championship in Alabama.
It just doesn't seem
pretty damn good at Alabama, as far as I'm concerned.
Listen, I don't dispute that at all. I just don't know if that translates to the NFL type quarterback that I think people expected him to be. I just don't see it. I mean, listen, I'm not rooting against the guy. I just don't see him having that skill set to be, he's not even Dak Prescott, I mean, he's not even that kind of a caliber player. And that's what you normally come to expect from a number 1 pick, but we'll see how that plays out. But, there's a lot going on. And like I said, football is right around the corner, which means, Steve, one of the best opening games of the college football season in years with Notre Dame and Ohio State. And Notre Dame named their starting quarterback, Tyler Buchner, yesterday. So I'm looking forward to that because we have our tie to Mr. Whippler from the Ohio State Buckeyes. But this is a matchup that we rarely get to see, and I'm more excited about the start of the NFL and high school football season, college football and high school football than I am with the NFL. So
I agree wholeheartedly, and looking forward to this game. Tyler Buchner, I'm sure, is well deserving of the starting quarterback job at Notre Dame. He's played, he's experienced, and he's a pretty good. He's done a pretty good job for the Irish so far.
Yeah,
so we'll see. They got their hands full with Ohio State. Ohio State last year, as great as they were and came on at the end, they got off to a slow start last year. So you got to be wary of that. But C.J. Stroud is going to be a Heisman favorite. And, Ohio State is always as loaded for bear. So, and it's an opening game like this. That's what we live and breathe for
you bet. Absolutely. So, Steve, let's move on to some random points of interest, and that's, of course, sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, who sent us a little goodie bag. I was going to wear my Lynch shirt today, and I meant to give you your Lynch shirt yesterday, and I forgot. So you have that coming to you. Just to start off on random points, we were just talking about Notre Dame and Ohio State and the whole transformation of the Big Ten and so forth. And they signed this billion-dollar deal with, this is kind of unprecedented. It's like with Fox, CBS, and NBC, and ESPN is not part of that package. So I think this has some implications for Notre Dame, potentially to join the Big Ten, but I don't know all of the logistics, but that was kind of interesting that ESPN was kind of excluded from that package that the Big Ten signed for broadcasting games. Thought it was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Listen, they're spreading the money around the pie, and these TV deals that are in place. I mean, sure, is it surprising ESPN is not front and center in something like this? Sure.
Yeah.
However, we talked about it. It's morphing into a super conference landscape, if you will. This should be completed within the next 5 years when Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC, and UCLA, USC in 2 years are Big Ten, and there's going to be a lot of realignment. But I guess these are the TV deals that are now going to be in place and going forward.
I mean, and we know that Notre Dame has their own deal with NBC, but so I just wonder how that's going to impact their decision whether to move to the Big Ten or not. But we can't get a better opening game of the college football season than this one. So I'm looking forward to that.
NBC needs to pony up a ton of money, and Notre Dame stays with NBC. If they don't, then it's not like Notre Dame's lacking for suitors. Yeah,
that's for sure. I know it's one of those teams that everyone says they don't like Notre Dame, but everybody watches Notre Dame when they're on TV. It's the funniest thing.
That's right.
Here was how ludicrous a fact is this, that, because we actually brought this up on Bobby Bonilla Day last month. The actual contract that he signed sold for $180,000. I mean, people can't just donate that $180,000 to the victims of the flooding in Kentucky. You got to buy this piece of garbage paper. People just have money to burn, I guess. I don't know. Frustrating. Another one, Steve. Serena Williams announced she's going to be retiring after the U.S. Open, and we've talked about it. I mean, we've seen some great women's players in our day, for sure. Chris Evert and Martina and Steffi Graf. But she's going to, in my eyes, is clearly the GOAT for women's tennis, and her record displays that. So, I mean, it's going to be a big loss for women's tennis. That was their biggest marketing piece, was Serena Williams. And it's so funny because it turns out she ended up being better than her sister Venus, who, had a great success of her own. But I wanted to note that, I suspected it was going to be her last U.S. Open. As she kind of made it official.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Serena Williams, the record speaks for itself. What is she, 40 years old now?
Yeah.
She has to go down as the best women's tennis player of all time, I would think.
Yeah.
To me, Steffi Graf, watching her in her prime was something special. And obviously Martina Navratilova during the Chris Evert era, she ranks right up there as well. Margaret Court,
yeah,
and on and on. But at the end of the day, it's time for Serena to, play. I guess she'll play the U.S. Open, and that'll be it. But it's time for her to move on.
Yep. Couple things, Steve. We talked about Bill Russell passing away last week, and the league did the right thing by retiring his number 6 league-wide.
Yep.
In the same mold as Jackie Robinson. I mean, you can't dispute 11 championships in 13 years, and I think it's great. I hope LeBron James has the courtesy to have to change his number, because if you have number 6 now, you could wear it. They'll just never issue it again. But I thought that was a brilliant move by Adam Silver, and to give that respect to Bill Russell that he absolutely deserves 100%. I think it was great.
Yeah, no question whatsoever, none. And what can you do? I mean, that's the ultimate in being honored.
It's the highest honor you could get, and it's just well deserved. I think it's great.
But
one other thing about a retired number, and I wanted to run this by you because I think the guy was an outstanding baseball player and certainly a key to the Yankees winning the championships. But they're retiring Paul O'Neill's number, and I wanted just to get your thoughts whether you say, yeah, that makes sense, or I think that's a little overboard. I think it's overboard.
Well, as Yankee fans, we know the train has left the station as far as this is concerned, right? Number 2, Derek Jeter should be retired. Number 3, Babe Ruth. Number 4, Lou. Number 5, Joe. Number 7, Mick. Right? We're all in agreement with that. Okay, those are the iconic, legendary New York Yankees.
Yep.
I love Donnie Mattingly, right? I love
Thurman
Rod
Munson.
Guidry, and on and on. And Paul O'Neill was so instrumental to these 5 championships.
I know that.
Right? It's not even fun. Paul O'Neill was an outstanding New York Yankee. Paul O'Neill cared. Paul O'Neill contributed, and I just loved the fact that Paul O'Neill was a Yankee. Should his number be retired? Probably not, but I'm not surprised it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. The horse has left the stable when it comes to this. The standards are different, I guess, in today's perspective of numbers. And listen, I agree with you 1,000%. He was outstanding and absolutely pivotal to those championship teams, but retired, I don't think so. Anyway, so Steve, let's just wrap up. We just a couple of notable passings.
Not Steve.
Huh? Oh,
not Steve.
Like me, stupid ass. This one looks like.
Yeah, Paul O'Neill. I think Paul O'Neill's a little over the top as far as retired numbers. I mean, well, who's left to get a number anymore, right?
That's what's happening. That's right. I mean, Mariano Rivera. That's right. Is his number retired? It sure as hell should be, right? I mean,
well, it has to be because of Jackie Robinson.
Well, I meant from a Yankees perspective. I don't know if it is yet,
yeah.
but he certainly deserves to have his number retired before Paul O'Neill.
Oh yeah, of course.
Anyway, so Rod, we're going to wrap up with notable passings, and from the world of entertainment, Olivia Newton-John. Right? That's big.
I've been playing her music all week during my sets, and everybody's going nuts, singing along. And
oh, great!
It's a tough one.
Awesome.
Very tough.
Yeah, she just and as a matter of fact, I watched Grease last night again.
Oh, yeah.
It was actually on twice in a row. But she was just a wonderful person. She was always, just delightful to see, and she, was such an impact in the music business, and that's a big loss. I know she was battling cancer for a while, I know, and she recovered over it, and then
years.
Yeah, I know.
And I was surprised to learn she was worth $60 million.
Why? I mean, she had #1 hit after #1 hit.
That was the music, yeah, for the music stuff.
Yeah. And Steve, here's another one that passed away. It's one of those actors you say, I may not know the name, but you know the face. Clu Gulager. And we've seen him he's been on 1,000 different shows, and I think his famous was in The Virginian, which was a great movie, great Western movie. But you know who that is, right? Clu Gulager. It was 93 or something. But if you look him up, you see the face, you'll recognize him. And see, if we just mentioned Olivia Newton-John as well. So anyway, that's it, folks. Thanks for joining us this week. We got a little bit of technical issues on Steve's side, which will get fixed up, and we'll be back. We would love to hear you, so send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.